Hi, I'm Jean Boone from the Central Branch of the Howard County Library System. Thanks for joining me today for Fairytale Engineering. Today we're going to learn about how engineers solve problems by listening to Aesop's fable, The Crow and the Pitcher. And then we'll use the 6 steps of engineering to help the crow solve its problem and get a really good drink of water. So, this class is designed for ages 5 to 8, and as you can see, it's pre-recorded. So you can pause anytime you like if you need to go back and review something or take some time to gather materials. We will be doing we will be doing an activity in a little bit. So I'm going to share with you now the list of materials that we'll need if you would like to pause and gather them so that you can do the activity along with me. If you'd rather just watch all the way through and then do it some other time at your convenience, that's fine too. So let me share my screen so we can look at those materials quickly. We're going to need a large jar, like the kind that spaghetti sauce comes in, and then another plastic container that might be a Tupperware container, a food storage container, both things that you can put some water into. And then you're going to need a variety of items that you gather from around your house that you can put into the water, things that will fit through the opening of your jar. So you might find rocks or balls, bouncy balls, plastic toys, marbles, a piece of wood, a small piece of fruit, whatever you would like to try putting into water. The idea is we're going to be looking at things that float and sink, as well as how things push water upward. So get a whole slew of things that are very different and could have different effects in the water. And then we'll need some paper to make a crow. And I've got a template here that I'm going to show you in a second that you could trace or download, or you can just draw your own and cut it out of paper. It needs to be about 4 or 5 inches long with a beak, and we want the beak to be able to tip into the jar to get a drink. And then we'll need some water. So here's the template of the crow. You can go to this link and print it out if you'd like, or you can just trace it off the screen or draw one yourself. I cut mine out of black paper, and then I put a googly eye on it, so mine looks like this. All right, so that's just a little preview of what we'll need in a bit. But let's get back and get started. So this is Fairytale Engineering, and to do engineering, we have to know what is an engineer. Well, an engineer is someone who uses what they know about the way things work to design or build or invent something to solve a problem. Engineers are problem solvers. Now, they often use math and science to do this, but they also need a lot of imagination and creativity to come up with new and better ways to do things. But what kinds of problems do engineers solve? Do you have some ideas? Do you know anybody who's an engineer? There are all kinds of engineers, and they do so many different things. If we start at the highest point in that we can think of, engineers design rockets to go into space for the International Space Station. They design airplanes and things on the ground like houses and roads and bridges to make them strong and sturdy and safe. They design things that we use in our houses like computers and computer games and washing machines and vacuum cleaners. They design things that we use that are inside the ground, like they figure out good ways to get oil or water or minerals out of the ground, or how to make food grow better, or how to protect the environment and reduce pollution. So there are so many different ways that engineers can solve problems. Maybe you know somebody who's an engineer, and even if you don't know somebody who does engineering for their job, you do know some engineers who solve problems in their everyday life. For example, I am an engineer, and the problem I'm working on right now has to do with my hummingbird feeder. I just got this bird feeder for hummingbirds. It needs to hang in a tree, but it didn't come with any hanger. It just has a little plastic loop on the top here. So I have to figure out how to make a hanger. That's my engineering problem. So my first idea was just to thread some string through there. But then I thought, string might not be the best material because it's going to hang outside and it'll be in the rain and the weather, and the string might fall apart. So then I thought about wire, and I found this really sturdy, heavy, stiff wire. I thought that would be very good. But the problem is, it's too stiff for me to twist it together. My fingers can't do it. So, and I didn't have a tool. So I got rid of that wire, and then I found a thinner wire. And this one's perfect because it's thin enough I can thread it through the hole, and I can also twist it with my fingers very securely. So now it's in a nice loop, and I can now find a nice branch to hang it in a tree. That's the next part of my engineering problem. Maybe you can help me with that one. How do you think I could get this to a nice high branch of a tree? What solution would you use? A ladder? Should I climb the tree? Or maybe I should climb on the shoulders of a friend to get up high. What else could I do? Is there a tool I could use? Something that could hook into my wire and then hook onto a branch? Or maybe I could design a drone that would fly it into a high branch of the tree. That would be a complicated solution. Solutions can be very simple and they can be complicated, and they can use a lot of different amounts of tools and materials. So when you pick a solution, you have to think about what's right for your problem and your situation. If you have some ideas about how to hang my hummingbird feeder, you should let me know. At the end of this class, I'm going to give you an email address, and you could send me a message with an idea if you have one. Okay, great. So now we know that we are all engineers. You're an engineer. You probably solve all kinds of problems all the time. But do you think a crow could be an engineer? That sounds a little unlikely, doesn't it? Well, I'm going to tell you the story today of the crow and the pitcher. And this is one of Aesop's fables. You've probably heard some of these. They've been around for hundreds of years, and they're very short tales involving animals. There's usually a message or a moral to the story. And this one I'm going to tell with one of my favorite puppets, this great big feathery crow. There she is. Caw, caw, caw. Okay. Are you ready? Here's how it goes. It was a dry, dry time all across the countryside. It hadn't rained for weeks on end. The trees and the bushes and the flowers were wilting and shriveled and withered. It was a terrible time for the animals and the birds, too. They could hardly find a drop of water to drink. But the crow, being the cleverest of birds, always managed to find just enough water to stay alive. Now, one day when this crow was flying low over a town looking for some sign of food and water, she spotted a house where there was a jug sitting on the porch. Now, being such a clever bird, she knew that jugs often had water in them. So she swooped down to take a closer look. And as she got close, she could smell the water. She was so thirsty. She knew it was there. And when she peeked in, sure enough, she could see it too. But there was a problem. It was too far down to reach. The jug had such a narrow neck that her beak and her head couldn't reach that far. Oh, she was so thirsty, and that water was so close. She had to find a way to get it. Now, remember, she is a very clever crow, and as she hopped around in frustration and thirst, she noticed a big pile of pebbles near the porch. She had a brilliant idea. She went over and grabbed one of those pebbles in her beak, and she dropped it right into that pitcher. Splash! The water rose higher. Could she reach it? Not quite yet, but it was closer. So she hopped over, grabbed another pebble in her beak, and plop! Another splash and another rise. And this time, yes, she reached the water. Her beak went in, and she drank and drank and drank her fill. "What a clever crow I am," she said. "What a clever crow." I would have to agree. And the moral of this story is, where there's a will, there's a way, but it helps to use your brain. And this crow seems to have had a very good brain and put it to use to find a solution. Now you might say, oh, that's just a story about a made-up story about a crow doing something amazing. But it turns out that crows really are that clever, and they are, in fact, good problem solvers. Scientists have done many studies of crows and, in fact, have given crows the same challenge that we saw in Aesop's fable. I'm going to share with you a video that shows the crow, one of these scientific studies where a crow has been given different containers with water, and floating on the water is a treat, but the crow can't reach it, and it has to do different, has to put different kinds of things into the tube to get the treat. Now let me show you this amazing experiment. This is on YouTube, and it's part of a Smithsonian Magazine article. Now you see the crow, and there's the treat bobbing, and he's putting some of these white bricks in. And is it high enough yet? Isn't it amazing? Look at how it does that. And snatch, got it. Now in this challenge, he's got solid and hollow things, and he's clever enough to know to put the solid ones in and grab the treat. Now here there's two tubes, one with sand. He doesn't bother with the one with sand because the sand won't move. The water will. Flop. How many will it take? Got solved that one. Now here there's a wide tube and a narrow tube. The crow doesn't realize that the narrow tube he could get to that treat quicker with the narrow tube. Now he's going to try that. And sure enough, got the treat. And this last challenge is the most difficult of all. Here, the treat is in a center tube, but he has to put the rocks in either the blue or the red tube, and only the red one is connected to the center. It takes a while for the crow to figure out that putting them in the blue tube does no good. Now he's going to put it into the red. Let's see. No, that's not good enough. Will he figure it out? There we go. That's it. Well, wasn't that incredible? I think that was a very impressive engineering feat. That crow might not need our help after all, but maybe we can demonstrate that we are as clever as crows by doing this engineering activity. So to get started on it, we're going to need a few things. The first thing we need are the 6 steps of engineering. Now, engineers really like to do things in a methodical way, so they've come up with a series of steps to go through whenever you're trying to solve a problem. So let's see what those are. Step 1, state the problem. You can't fix it until you figure out what exactly you're trying to do, right? So that's the first thing. Step 2, make a plan. You have to brainstorm all kinds of ideas. Think of everything you can think of and what would be good and bad about it, and what kind of materials you might need for that plan. And once you've chosen your best idea, step 3 is build it. Get all the materials you need and put them together. And once it's built, step 4, test it out. You have to figure out if it works or not. But what if it doesn't work? What if your test fails? What if your design falls apart? Are you finished? Is that it? Have you failed? No, absolutely not. The test is only one part of the process, and we usually have to go back and do it a number of times. It's very unusual for the test to work perfectly the first time. And what happens when you test something and it doesn't work is you figure out what's wrong and what you need to fix and how to make it better. So that's when you go to step 5, which is redesign. And that means you go back and fix your design a little bit, make it work. And then you test it again, and you test it again until it does exactly what you need it to do. When it's finally successful, step 6 is share. Engineers like to share their ideas and their experiences with each other, and that way they can save others from making the same mistakes they did. We learn from each other by sharing our ideas and experiences and talking about what worked and what didn't work. Okay, so we've got the 6 steps of engineering. The next thing we need is a song. Can you believe it? A song? It's not because engineers sing when they work all the time. I'm sure some of them do, but I wrote a song to tell us about the 6 steps of engineering because it's so much easier to remember things when you sing them. Have you found that? You get songs stuck in your head? Well, maybe this one will get stuck in your head and you'll always remember the 6 steps of engineering. So this song is to the familiar tune of I've Been Working on the Railroad. I'm going to show you the words. They're on this poster behind me, but you might not be able to see it well. So let's go to the words I have on my screen, I think. Here we go. I've been working on a problem all the livelong day. I've been working on a problem and it just won't go away. But I can use engineering to help me get it done. That's 6 steps of engineering. Follow them one by one. 1, state the problem. 2, make a plan. 3, get materials and build the best you can. 4, test it out. 5, redesign. 6, share with others what makes it so fun. You ready to sing? You can sing as loud as you want. You're at home. I'm going to sing too. Here we go. I've been working on a problem all the livelong day. I've been working on a problem and it just won't go away. But I can use engineering to help me get it done. 6 steps of engineering. Follow them one by one. Ready? 1, state the problem. 2, make a plan. 3, get materials and build the best you can. 4, test it out. 5, redesign. 6, share with others what makes it so fine. Great job. All right. Is it stuck in your head now? Okay, well, let's carry those steps with us. And now we're ready to get our materials together. So let's come back and I'll show you what my materials look like. Yours might be a little different, but it's very flexible. So here's my jar, and I filled it about halfway with water. You can see how big it is, a little more than halfway. And it's got a good size opening at the top. And I also have another container with water in it. This is just a big wide plastic container with a little bit of water in order to experiment a bit with things to see how they'll behave when they're in water. And then I have my whole collection of stuff I found around the house to try out. I've got a golf ball. I've got a lime. A lemon would work too. I have a plastic egg. I have some plastic toy animals. Blocks would be good. I have a little rubber duck from the library summer reading game and a bouncy ball. I have a sponge and a cork. What have you found? You could gather all kinds of things. The most important thing to remember when you're gathering possibilities is that they're small enough to fit through the hole of your jar. If it's too big for the jar, then it won't be useful to you. So gather a bunch of different things. I also have a nice collection of rocks here that I'll be using. And then here's my crow. So you can cut out and draw a crow, cut it out of paper or out of cardboard. Doesn't have to look like exactly like this one, but make it about this size, about 4 or 5 inches with a nice long beak. And the idea is that the crow will sit on the edge of your jar and tip its beak in just this far. And we have to be able to get that crow's beak wet. Okay, so if you would like to pause for a few minutes to gather these materials and get ready, go ahead. And when you're ready, start it up again and we'll move on to our 6 steps of engineering and our problem solving. Okay, ready? Step 1, remember what it is? Define the problem. What is the problem we have to solve? Well, we have to get this crow a drink of water. So, as I said, we're going to have to make the water rise high enough in this jar to touch the crow's beak. And that means the crow would be able to drink. Now, the other thing we have to think about when we're solving the problem is that the crow isn't able to make that many trips carrying things. This crow is not so big and strong. So we can only make the crow carry a few things and put them in the jar. So to solve this problem, we're going to be limited to 3 items. Only choose 3 things to put into your jar to try to make the water level rise. So that's the problem, to get the water to rise high enough for the crow to drink without the crow having to make more than 3 trips. Now, step 2, make a plan. We need a plan. How are we going to make the water level rise? Well, to solve that, we're going to need to know something about water displacement. And this is a principle that was discovered by Archimedes, a Greek scientist, thousands of years ago. Let me show you something about that. Here is a picture of the Archimedes Principle. So Archimedes one day was taking a bath, and when he got into the bathtub, water sloshed out all over the floor. And Archimedes famously said, "Eureka!" which means he had figured something out. And what he figured out was that when he got in the bathtub, his body, as an object, had pushed the water right out. And so the Archimedes Principle says that when an object is placed in water, it will displace or push away some of that water. So if the object is very light and full of air, like, for example, my sponge, when you put it in water, it doesn't displace very much water, and the pressure of the force of the water pushes back more forcefully than the sponge pushes down, and that means the object floats. So that's what we see in this picture here on the left. But if you have something very heavy and dense, when it goes into the water, it displaces much more water, and the water is not heavy enough to push back against the heavy object, and the object sinks. So, like this rock. And the water level rises. So you can see that in this picture on the right. You see how the water level was pushed up from that original line when the object, the heavy object, went down to the bottom. So that's what we need to understand to make our water go up for the crow, right? So knowing that, let's take a look at our objects and evaluate them a little bit. What do you have gathered? So do you think we should look for things that float or things that sink? We're going to look for things that sink. And is a bigger thing better than a smaller thing? Well, maybe sometimes it is. It would push more water. So the bigger it is, the more water it's going to push. So that could be good. But remember, we have to also keep in mind the size of the jar. So if the object's too big, it won't fit in. And what about the shape? Does the shape of the thing matter? Yes, I think it does. For example, you might have some clay. Modeling clay is a good thing to try. It's very heavy. You can change the shape. So what happens if you use the clay all spread out in a pancake shape? If it's flat and thin, how much water will it push out of the way in this shape? But what if you ball it up into a solid ball? Will it displace more water? That's something you can try out. The shape and the size do matter too for how they fit together in the jar. If you pile up a lot of things that are very lumpy and take up so much space that the water, they fill more space than the water, the crow won't be able to get to the water. So we need just enough items and not too many items. You might have something like this. This is a sort of marble kind of thing. If you have marbles, they're great for sinking, but think how many it would take to push the water up even a little because they're small. So take some time to think about that. Try them out in your big container if you want to see how they behave in water, but don't try them in the jar yet. And once you've gathered a variety of things and thought about it and examined them and observed them, then it's time to move on to step 3, which is build. Now in this challenge, we don't have something physical to build like a bridge or a ladder. Instead, what we're building is a design, or a design of what kinds of items to use. So we need a design of 3 things to put in, right? So at this stage, you want to think about the 3 best ideas you have and pick, or the combination of 3 that you think will work best. So I'm going to choose my clay and the biggest rock I have that will still fit through the opening of the jar, and a golf ball. Those are my 3 ideas. Did you pick 3? That's your building. You're done. So now it's time for step 4, the test. Move this out of the way. All right. Now let's put our things in carefully. Oh, plop, there goes my clay. And the water level did rise. If you can see that, a little bit, not too much. And there goes my golf ball. Oh, went up a little more, gone about this much so far. And now here's my big rock. Oh, and that's clonked on top of the clay. All right, now it's time to see if my crow can drink. I'm going to bring the crow over and tip his beak in. Oh, no, still very far away. I need to raise the water level about this much more. So it's time for me to go back and redesign. I'm going to take those things out of the water and look at my collection again and see if there's a better combination, or maybe I really need to have more than 3 things. So, or I might need to go look around my house for some better ideas. How did your test work out? Do you need to try some different things, or did your crow already get a good drink? Well, however it worked out, it's fine to go back and try over and over again. In fact, each time you learn something new, and you might have fun doing it. I hope so. All right, so when you've gotten your crow to have a nice wet beak and a great drink, then it's time for step number 6, share. Find somebody in your family or among your friends to tell about your experiment, and tell them all the things that worked and what didn't, and what you tried, and why you thought that something might work, and maybe things that surprised you. That's always interesting. So I hope you had fun with that. Maybe you would like to learn some more about crow creativity and about floating and sinking. So I have a few other activities to share with you that you can try at home sometime. Let me just show you. Here's an experiment that is based on some studies of crows that showed how crows actually make tools out of sticks. They create little hooks so that they can dig bugs out of tree branches. Pretty amazing. And that is all, you can learn all about that in this great book from the library called Crow Smarts. It's a book you can request and take home to read. But this experiment comes from the website listed at the bottom, and you can create you can try to devise a tool that would allow you to be an engineer like a crow and dig a tree out of a long tube. So challenge yourself and see if you can do that experiment as well as a crow would. And if you really liked the water part of today's activity, you might enjoy this experiment that comes from the book 101 Great Science Experiments. It's one of my favorites. And again, something you can get from the library. And this experiment uses a little ball of clay and a pen cap to make a pretend diver. And you would put it in a big plastic bottle and learn how to make it rise up in the water and sink down in the water. So that's kind of surprising because we saw things either float or sink. But there is a way to adjust the pressure of the water to make an object go up and go down and control its movement. So check out that book to learn more about how to make a diver. Or this book, Floating and Sinking, is another great choice. So all of these things you can find at the library. I have some other books to suggest as well. And if you go to hclibrary.org, you can request books, put them on hold at your favorite branch, and then arrange a time to go and pick them up and enjoy that at home. And you can also find lots of other resources at hclibrary.org, including great online resources like Science Flicks that provide science experiments and videos of experiments, and also lots of other online classes. So I hope you'll check that out. Let me show you a few more book titles that I'm especially excited about. Here are some books about crows, some books about floating and sinking and experiments in water. And this one in the center is called Solve This. It's from National Geographic. And it includes some really fun engineering challenges. So if you're excited now about being an engineer, here are some really fun problems that you can solve in this book. Let me show it to you. I've got a copy right here. And in this book, teams of engineers come up with designs for all kinds of funny challenges, like ways to protect your candy stash if you're trying to hide some candy from somebody else, or how to design a backyard waterfall. I thought that one looked pretty cool. And they draw out their designs and go through the engineering process to solve these problems. So try that one as well. Thank you so much for being with me today for Fairytale Engineering. I hope I will see you again soon. And remember, you can write an email to askhcls.org if you have any questions or follow up to this class, and just put Fairytale Engineering into the subject line. Here is what that looks like. There's the website or the address for sending an email. And thanks again. See you soon. Bye.